Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Gamma Di Gamma. So in this video, let's finally do an integral question. Let's get started. Okay, so the problem at hand, I'm gonna call that I is equal to integral from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2 of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus tan of y dy. Now the only natural thing that anyone can do at this point is to introduce the u substitution. Let u equal tan of y, such that y will be nothing but the inverse tangent of u. So dy will be du divided by 1 plus u squared. Okay, so I now becomes, so when you have a tan of negative pi over 2, u is negative infinity, and for the positive case, positive infinity. Natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus u dy will be du divided by 1 plus u squared. Now looking at the upper and lower bounds, which go from negative infinity to positive infinity, and the nature of this integrand over here, especially the denominator, if you have been watching some of my videos, then this might occur to you that we can do this guy by complex analysis or contour integration or residue theorem or whatever you want to call it, but this method which involves complex numbers. So for that, now let's define a general function f of z that takes in a complex variable. So call that natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus z divided by 1 plus z squared. Fair enough. So we have a function defined. What we need to do is we need to define a contour over which we are going to integrate that, and that contour ideally should contain this region of negative infinity to positive infinity. So let me just place a contour like that. So quickly now I've drawn the contour. So the contour is going from, say, negative r to r, and then just curving back to negative r on this path, say gamma, and later on we're going to take the limit as r goes to infinity. So this region from minus r to r will just become this region from negative infinity to positive infinity. And I'll just label these axes, real axis and the imaginary axis, and we are integrating f of z. So the contour integral of f of z over this guy can be expressed in two parts. So integral from minus r to r of f of z dz plus the integral over gamma of f of z dz. Fair enough. Now on this path from minus r to r, we're always going to be on the real axis, so any imaginary components of, while we're integrating from minus r to r, will just become 0, because z is x plus iy. The y is 0 because the integration is happening only on the real axis, so y will be 0, so z will be equal to x. So we have integral from minus r to r f of x dx plus integral over gamma f of z dz. Okay, now I would like to substitute f of x in this first guy. So f of x is a natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus x divided by 1 plus x squared dx plus integral over gamma of f of z dz. All this is still equal to the contour integral of f of z dz. Now what are we going to do is I'm going to consider this guy separately in a part that's called the estimation lemma. So let's do that on a fresh page. See you there. Okay, welcome to the world of estimation lemma. We need to look at this integral over gamma of f of z dz. And what was gamma actually? So gamma just happens to be this curved path that we have over here, this top curved path. But we're interested in the mod of this guy, and by an identity we know that this is less than or equal to integral over gamma of the mod of f of z times the mod of dz. Fair enough. Now I would like to just substitute stuff. Integral over gamma of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus z divided by 1 plus z squared mod dz, and mod is here as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a parameterization. Let z equal to r times e to the it to parameterize this curving path. For rotations you need this e to the it part, and the radius is r, where t is basically going from 0 to pi to complete a top semicircle. That means dz is ri e to the it dt. So then we have mod of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus r e to the it again that's under mod divided by 1 plus r squared e to the 2it again under mod. Dz is mod of ri e to the it. Mod dt is dt because it's always going to be positive. So now you have integral from 0 to pi. I can use another identity, an inequality rather, to get mod of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus r e to the it divided by the mod of this guy, the mod of r squared e to the 2it minus 1. The mod of r I e to the it is just r dt. This is now integral from 0 to pi. Mod of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus r e to the it r dt divided by r squared minus 1, because the mod of this will just be r squared. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the limit as r goes to infinity, and since this integral is perfectly convergent, we can take the limit inside, and notice that the denominator has a greater tendency of blowing up to infinity, because a natural log grows slower than a polynomial, right? I mean, there is no chance that this guy is acting like an r and having an r square on top and then the limit will turn out to be 1. Like the natural log of r is always less than or equal to r, right? Okay, you know what, not equal to, but just less than r, because we are talking real numbers. R is a real number, that's why. So that's why this guy in mod will always grow less than r, so this will be less than r, so that means r square in the denominator. So there's a polynomial of degree 2 and a polynomial of degree 1 multiplied with something that's less than a polynomial, which means anyways the denominator is going to win this tug of war. And then if the denominator grows faster than the numerator, in the limit that r goes to infinity, all of this will just go down to 0, which means this guy mod of integral over gamma of f of z is just less than or equal to 0. And the property of a mod is it's always positive, so it's greater than or equal to 0. So this guy is trapped between these zeros, which means to satisfy both these inequalities simultaneously, this has to be 0. And when the mod of something is 0, that something should also be 0. Fascinating property of mods, very helpful. So this guy will just go to 0. Okay, so by our discussion on that page, this will go to 0, which means the contour integral of f of z dz is actually, and we can take the limit as r approaches infinity because we took the limit for this case. So then we get integral from minus infinity to infinity of natural log of square root of 1 plus x plus 1 divided by 1 plus x squared dx. And now at this point we can totally use the residue theorem. Okay, so what the residue theorem says is that the contour integral of say any function of z, h of z dz, is equal to 2 pi I times the sum of residues of h of z with corresponding to the poles of h of z that are inside the contour. At poles inside the contour. Poles are the values where the h of z is undefined, where basically in most cases the denominator goes to 0, making the entire thing become undefined. In our case, 1 plus x squared equals 0. We have x squared equals negative 1. So x is plus or minus square root of negative 1, which is plus or minus I. So the two possibilities are x is either I or it's negative I. And we have to choose the pole that's only inside the contour. Let's look at our contour. I is over here, 1 unit on the imaginary axis, and negative I is over here. So negative I can be ignored now. It's outside the contour. Remember this I. So forget this, take this. And the way to find the residue of a simple pole is take the limit as z goes to I, z minus I times f of z. That's the residue. So we have limit as z goes to I, z minus I, natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus z divided by 1 plus z squared can be written as z minus 1, z plus 1. This guy cancels off. Then plugging in the value, we have natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus I divided by 2I. That's the residue. But according to our formula, the contour integral of f of z dz is 2 pi I times the sum of residues. We have only one residue, so the sum of residues is just this guy, natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus I divided by 2I. So the i's cancel out, the 2's cancel out. Our contour integral, now we can plug in this integral of minus infinity to infinity of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus x divided by 1 plus x squared dx is equal to just pi times natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus I. Now although you can end over here because this is just the I we wanted. If you back substitute, you'll get this guy, and you can end it over here with this nice answer. But since this is a complex number, natural log with a complex argument is definitely a complex number. Complex numbers are expressed in the form a plus ib, where a and b are both real numbers and I is square root of -1. So yeah, let's try our best to express this natural log guy in terms of these guys, a plus ib. Okay, now let's say z is natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus I, basically the thing we need to simplify. Now any complex number can be expressed as r times e to the I theta. This r is not the same as the contour. I don't know, let's call it r1 for example. This is the polar form of a complex number. You have the radius and then you have the angle that the complex number subtends with respect to the horizontal axis or the real axis. So then let's call whatever is inside the natural log z naught. So z naught is again a complex number and it can be expressed as r1 e to the I theta. Using log properties, that is natural log of r1 plus natural log of e to the I theta, which is natural log of r plus I times theta. And this is actually of the form a plus ib, where b is theta and a is natural log of r. Although we have a natural log, but r is a constant, so natural log of r1 is a constant which is real a. Both of these guys are real. How do we find a now? How do we rather find r1? R1 is like the radius or the distance from the origin of a complex number. So first of all, z naught is 1 plus square root of 1 plus I. We can do better with this, right? We can express square root of 1 plus I as some c plus id, square both sides, and we'll have c squared minus d squared plus 2cdi is equal to 1 plus I. Now comparing real and imaginary parts, c squared minus d squared is 1, 2cd is 1 because coefficient of I is 1 over here. That means that d is 1 over 2c, and we have c squared minus 1 over 4c squared is equal to 1, 4c squared, c squared minus 1 is 1, 4c to the 4th minus 4c squared minus 1 is 0. Now use the quadratic formula. C squared is nothing but 4 plus or minus square root of 16 plus 4 times 4 divided by 8, 2 times 4. C squared will become 4 plus or minus 4 root 2 over 8, which will be 1 plus or minus root 2 over 2. Now C, because C is the real part, C and D both again have to be real numbers in order to represent Z naught properly. So if C has to be a real number, then the c is square root of a positive number. You can't have a square root of a negative number and then expect that c to be real. So we can only account for the positive, we can't account for the negative. 1 plus square root of 2 over 2, that's c. Okay, and then using this c squared back into this, we will have d squared is c squared minus 1. So d squared is 1 plus square root 2 over 2 minus 1, which will roughly become square root 2 minus 1 over 2, that is d squared precisely. D is square root of square root 2 minus 1 over 2. So that means now z naught, rather let me put it this way, square root of 1 plus I, as we discussed, can be expressed as c plus id, where c is square root of 1 plus square root 2 over 2 plus I times square root of square root 2 minus 1 over 2. Z naught is just adding 1 to this. So the real part is 1 plus square root of 1 plus square root 2 over 2. That's the real part. And the imaginary part is unchanged. Square root of square root 2 minus 1 over 2. Fair enough. That is z naught, and that is precisely what's inside this natural log. Okay, but how is this going to help us now? That's going to help us find r. So r squared is actually the real part of this thing squared plus this thing squared, the imaginary part squared. So 1 plus square root of 1 plus square root 2 over 2, but the whole thing squared, plus square root of square root 2 minus 1 over 2, but the whole thing squared. This is basically glorified Pythagorean theorem, because we're calculating magnitudes or distances from the origin in the complex plane. So over here we have 1 plus 2 times square root of 1 plus square root 2 over 2 plus 1 plus square root 2 over 2 plus square root 2 minus 1 over 2. So this 1/2 cancels out with this negative 1/2. We have 1 plus square root 2 times square root of 1 plus square root 2, because there is a slight cancellation going on, plus square root of 2. We have 1 plus square root of 2 plus 2 root 2 plus root 2, that is your r squared. You can probably take the square root, 1 plus square root 2 plus 2 root 2 plus root 2, that's r. 1 rather, I just keep messing my notation. Fair enough. Now for theta. Theta is the inverse tangent of the imaginary part of z naught divided by the real part. We can actually write stuff down because we know the value of z naught. So square root of square root 2 minus 1 over 2 times the reciprocal of this guy, if we want to divide it that way. So that is going to be square root 2 plus square root of 1 plus square root 2 with a square root 2, but the reciprocal of that. So we've inverse tangent. Well, the root 2's will cancel out certainly. We have a square root of square root 2 minus 1, and you then divide by square root of 1 plus square root 2 plus square root 2. Now looking at the hopeless with a denominator which has a lot of these nested radicals, I would actually want to rationalize this. So square root of 1 plus square root 2 minus square root 2 divided by square root of 1 plus square root 2 minus square root 2. Theta just becomes the inverse tangent of, we can use a difference of squares formula under a square root. So square root 2 squared, which is 2 minus 1, minus square root of 2 root 2 minus 2 divided by, again difference of squares over here, 1 plus square root 2 minus 2. So that's the inverse tangent of, this will be 1 minus square root of 2 root 2 minus 2 divided by root 2 minus 1. That's our theta, inverse tangent of this crazy guy. So we know all our things. We know r1, we know theta. So our z can be represented as natural log of r, and r is square root of 1 plus square root of 2 plus 2 root 2 plus root 2, and theta is just this guy. So I times theta, which is inverse tangent of 1 minus square root of 2 root 2 minus 2 over root 2 minus 1. That is the value of z basically. Okay, so to basically conclude things, we started off with this integral I, which was from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2 of natural log of 1 plus square root of 1 plus tangent of y dy, and that in the end just became pi times z, which was the natural log expression. So then we have pi times the natural log of square root of 1 plus square root of 2 plus 2 root 2 plus root 2 plus pi I inverse tangent of 1 minus root 2 root 2 minus 2 over root 2 minus 1. Now we can bring the square root is a half power, we can multiply that down using log properties. Natural log of 1 plus root 2 plus 2 root 2 plus root 2 plus pi I times the inverse tangent of 1 minus square root 2 root 2 minus 2 over root 2 minus 1. That's a really scary result, really scary, but we got through it luckily. And I'll tell you what this approximately evaluates to. It has a value of 2.40107 plus I times 0.67085, and again these two numbers are recurring because of the pi and stuff, irrationals, but that's the answer we have for this guy today. And I think let's end the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. So before going, please like and subscribe to my channel, guys. Recommend me to your friends. Spread the word of Gamma Di Gamma in the math community. And in the meantime, stay home, stay safe, keep doing math. Don't get too tired and stay tuned for more content. Peace out, signing off.